So here we have the stock Galaxy Digital. This one was put on to me actually. I was on a Spaces on the Wolf Crypto Spaces, and there was a guy on there called Ross, who he was incredibly bullish on this, and he'd done a lot of really detailed analysis, and pulled together some really interesting points on this, and highlighted some key areas where they are potentially undervalued. And so I will link to this down below. But I thought let's just map it out on a technical perspective, see what we can see. It's quite a difficult chart to map. Is one thing I'd say. So it it doesn't go back that far. We have a lot of irrelevant price action before the stock split, so we will just ignore that. I think we'll just take that out and leave that be. So looking at the chart itself and where the levels are, I think we can see quite a nice wave pattern. If we go back and we can look at some levels, so we've got a nice monthly level there. We will map out at the top here the high of the previous impulse. Not an all-time high, but based on the data we have, we'll mark that in. We've got another monthly level here just below. If I just move this slightly under, and we've got another one up here. So if we just go in under here and just adjust this so we get it under these two candles here. So what else can we see? Not a huge amount over there. If we go across, what do we have here? Nothing particularly. No, there's not really any levels here to mark out. We've got one here, so I'll just mark these as monthly. Monthly, monthly, monthly. We will on this take this off. As we can see, the previous price action is a little bit of a throwaway. As we can see, there's not much on there, so it's really difficult to chart when you've got that. You can't really rely on that as historical. So instead, we will go back and look on the weekly and see what we can see. So if we take the chart out, we look across, we see, what can we see? We've got a weekly level here that's slightly above the monthly, so we'll ignore that one. We'll come across and we'll have a look. What can we see? We see quite an interesting level here. Again, slightly close to the monthly, a bit closer than I would have liked it to have been. We'll mark in the top of the candle bodies for the previous impulse. So if we just mark that in there, like so. And looking across, what else can we see? We've got another level here. So I'll just make this line white. And we can see there's quite a lot of liquidity in this zone. We've got some big fair value gaps. We see some liquidation wicks into this zone. So this is definitely a zone to keep an eye on. But if we go into the nearer term price action, what can we see? So we can see, if we zoom out, we saw this pull down that began to close some of the fair value gap left, didn't close the entire way before rebounding up in the V shape. And we can see this lines up with some of the previous impulses. So across from there, what do we have on the previous impulse? So if we look on here, Again, not really any levels on that one. If we go across, are there any levels we can spot here? We can find a daily level there. We'll just mark this D. And we have one in this region? No. So if we go back to the weekly and we reset, we'll look at this from a volume perspective shortly, but we can see that there's a really strong weekly candle, the big impulse, which has left a fair value gap behind. So if we get our favorite FRVP on and just readjust the chart, so we have, yeah, so if we zoom out and we put our FRVP over this chart, if we go from here across to here, what can we see? Well, we can see some interesting points. We've certainly got the high volume area here, which we will mark with a line, and we'll make this purple. This is our high volume line. We see a couple of really nice volume patches. So we've got one here that we will mark on with a horizontal ray. So we've got one there. We have one just above the daily level, which we will mark on here, like so. And we can see there's some strong areas around here. So what I will do is I will get the box tool out, and we can box these out just as areas to watch for. So we'll put a box around this high volume area. We will put a box around this backtest zone, and we will put a box up around here. So if we can see a lot of the price action around the top, there's obviously quite a lot of liquidity down in the sub $4 range, but I don't think we'll be visiting that soon. So we can, zooming in, what can we see? We can see really strong push up into this zone. And if I just move this back test zone across, we can see that really strong push up through what was a zone with quite a lot of volume in. And if we look, we can see the high volume zone, and we can see the fair value gaps, and we can see the order blocks below. So I will just turn that off. So yeah, really interesting. I think there's some nice outcomes for this. You could potentially see a pullback and a back test here. If not, a retest of the daily. If it fails to hold that, we may be looking at the bottom grey box. Some really interesting areas to play involved in. Whether this fills the fair value gap, I guess we'll see. Or if we come all the way down, we retest this $24 range before then presuming an impulse up. If we just mark on the top of here, we've got a nice wick to aim at for a sweep. I think for me, we can see there's a lot of liquidity in this area with the long wicks. So I think we're working our way through here. If we break above, I think this could be really bullish, and we could look to sweep and move up quite strongly, and take that $34. If we zoom out, we can see above that not much else to chart, but we could potentially see quite a strong run upwards. I think that's where you get more into the fundamental side of it, which you can read some of the research. But as a chart, it looks pretty strong. We can see it's come down, it's retested, it's grabbed some liquidity, and it's pushed quite strongly back up. So definitely one to keep an eye on. I think this is a really interesting play, particularly if we get a retracement back into some of the zones. I think this looks quite strong, and I think if you're able to find a nice entry before this moves up and sweeps, then it could be quite an effective play. But none of this is financial advice, and I recommend going and reading the research.